We are on our way. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to Comics for All once again. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2026. My name is Jameson, your host here at Comics for All, where comics, creativity, and community all connect. As part of our weekly Ink and Insight series, we get to interview comic creators from all over the place. And today we have the wonderful Adam Barnhardt from Summit Comics, and we're going to dive into the current Kickstarter campaign and other things he's done in comics. But Adam, thanks for coming on the show today. It's good. Glad to see you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So the first question I like to ask everyone, because I'm a comics librarian, so I like to hear what people read. But what hooked you into comics as a reader?
What hooked me into comics as a reader? Um, I started as a collector. My dad has collected comics my entire life. So I got into it on the collecting side. And I remember, oh man, what was it? It was Little X-Men run. Was it like, I have to search it. It's like, it was new X-Men, but it was like, it was a weird new X-Men one. And I remember I the first comic I read was one I bought through Mile High Comics. So I was born and raised in rural Northwest Iowa, and there's no comic stores within a drivable distance. Well, they're 2 hours away. So I remember for when I turned 14 or whatever, and I was working at the Pizza Ranch. One of my first checks, I bought my first comics to read, and it was new. Oh, this one right here, New X-Men Academy X, um, and that was one of the first comics I bought with my own money
Sweet.
and read. I won't say that necessarily got me hooked into comics, but that is the one memory I have, one of the earliest memories I have, um, outside of the stuff my dad let me read of his.
Who's the writer on that run? Do you know?
I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head. I have no, I, I know nothing of it. I just remember, the cover. I'm a sucker for like magic academies or mutant academies.
Yes.
So I think that's what drew me into it. I love the Harry Potter books, um, and things like that. One of my favorite comics is a newer comic by Joe Schmalke. 7 years.
In
I don't even
Darkness?
know what it's. Yes, exactly.
Yes. I've heard of it,
Um,
but I haven't checked it out myself yet.
yes, it's Magic School, but it's like uh, goth heavy metal Magic School, and
Oh,
I
hell
really
yeah.
like it a lot. I think he just launched a new campaign for it this week.
Nice.
But
Okay.
no, that's another Magic School one I like. Yeah, I don't know how to answer the original question. What actually hooked me into reading comics? Um,
I know it's hard to kind of narrow down like a singular event or something.
right, right.
But
Yeah, I'm
a
not.
good, a kind of good follow up that I like to ask is for yourself, when did you realize you actually wanted to be creative and part of the comics community? Were you a younger person, adult, or when did that happen for you?
So I've always wanted to tell stories in some way. I've always been a huge RPG kind of guy.
Oh, sweet.
When we would be looking for like video games to buy, I would only want the video games where you could create your own character or something like that. I was a huge, big into both World of Warcraft and Diablo 2 growing up. Diablo and Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is probably the most time I've ever spent on a video game. Way too much.
I was gonna say that game
Um,
can be very time consuming.
yeah, yes, yes. So no, I've just always liked telling stories, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I wanted to try writing comics. Probably at least 10 years ago now, is when I wrote my first comic script, and I thought it was the best thing ever. And then I read it again, I'm like, man, this sucks really bad. Except I didn't realize that until after I paid an artist to draw the entire thing. And I'm like, man, I don't like this at all.
Oh man,
But yeah, you live and you learn, and
that's right.
you move on and you keep on writing, and eventually you'll find something you like. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so much out there. And, is another kind of reader centric question. And I know not every creator out there has free time to read comics necessarily, but if you have, are there any comics that have stuck with you that you've read recently ish? Either indie or major or both.
Absolutely. One of my favorite comics, if not my favorite comic ever written, is the Black Hammer universe, Dark Horse's Black Hammer universe by Jeff
Yes.
Lemire and Dean Ormston. And that's where Tate Brumble cut his teeth, and now Tate's one of the biggest writers at DC.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Tiny Onion. Yeah. And what else? It's mainly Jeff Lemire. He did some Substack stuff. I've been loving all the absolute stuff. I've been loving most things DC's put out in the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
What else have I been reading? I've been rereading some of DC's horror stuff. I got through what was it, like Rain in Hell, and then I'm reading Shadow Pact.
Okay.
Stuff like that. What else? I'm trying to think. I don't know, but if you had me choose my Mount Rushmore or my top 4 favorite comics, Black Hammer's definitely on it. Immortal Iron Fist is on it by Fraction and Brubaker and David Aja, and who I've only said 2 of 4, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the other 2 would be. Those are by and large my favorite ones, but.
Well, how about a Summit tease? Are there any Summit stories that you are personally excited for that you're like, wow, this is fantastic?
I'm excited for everything, man. I'm excited for the stuff I'm writing. I'm excited for the stuff everyone else is writing. There's a character, Devin R. Scott's writing a character named Trench,
Yes.
who's like an alien, ultra-terrestrial, cosmic being, but also like a gumshoe noir detective. Hellboy type vibes, and I think that's a really interesting character. I'm a huge sucker for mythology, so
Me too.
My character Erebra is the daughter of Hades, and then Nate is, what's Nate writing? Golden Sun, who's attached to Athena. So I mean, that's the cool thing about Summit. We have stories we have stories that scratch every itch, and that probably should be our marketing. Yeah, it should be our marketing slogan. We'll leave the itchy stuff to pharmaceuticals, but we just have something for everyone, I don't know how to say Sebastian's last name. It's very Italian. Sebastian Piccioni.
Piccioni, something like that.
Something like that. He's writing Cobalt Cricket, which is like the ultimate homage to like older teen superheroes, like an Amazing Spider-Man, maybe some flavors of Deadpool, but not as Deadpool-y.
Right.
But then you also have like Daniel Colbin's Vesper, who's badass Nightwing Winter Soldier amalgamation. Or
we got Wayfarer.
Or Wayfarer, yep, from the stars. We have the mythological characters. Brian Wolf's go-to guys are like Iron Man mixed with Heroes for Hire. We have everything. Whatever genre you want, we have. And
as a reader, that's really appealing.
Right. I mean, that's the goal, right? We want to kind of cast as wide as net as possible, and hopefully we catch some fish. Hopefully we capture some readers, and they become. We've already started seeing that. We just wrapped up Summit Pinnacle #1, the campaign for that, and we're already have a pretty active Discord server where people are sharing their favorite characters, and who they're looking forward to most, and we have 2 other campaigns live already. So yeah, it's exciting to get this big old steam engine, rolling. We started working on this last summer, and now we're bringing stories to life, and it's a really exciting time to be a part of it.
Yes, it sure is. And today, in particular, we're going to talk about a lot of your Dr. Vane and his role in kind of the Summit world. But for viewers out there who haven't met you before and are new to your work, how do you introduce yourself as a comic creator? And then part 2, what is your role at Summit Comics and how are you involved?
Right. So who am I as a writer? My very first, the story I talked to you that I hated will never see the light of day, probably ever again. I did get some copies of it self-published and printed, but that's locked away in a long box in the basement. But the second thing I did write was a book called Shit Show, and it was published by Scout Comics for 3 issues, and they were going to do the second and subsequent volumes. But I eventually got the rights back for that. And that was followed up by Keepers of the Cosmos, which was also published by Scout, which is set in the same universe as Shit Show. I call it the Riot Verse.
Ooh, okay.
So it went to Keepers of the Cosmos. I got the rights back for both of those, and I've pretty much pivoted exclusively to the whole self-publishing Kickstarter crowdfunding route. I just think that's really where indie and small press folks are, especially in a post-Diamond world where,
yes,
we
absolutely.
have Lunar and Penguin as distributors, but even Valiant hasn't been able to get their stuff published themselves. They're sub-distributing through IDW, I think, now. So in the current landscape, I think Kickstarter's the way to go. And the second part of the question, for Summit, I am Chief Creative Officer, which does the job description is pretty wide and has a lot of bullet points and stuff such as that. I get to, I guess, showrun our Summit Pinnacle 2. We announced that last week during the final week of the campaign. Its working title is called The Black Assembly. And it is cosmic horror by way of superheroes. I think fans of Venom. Yes, fans of Venom and Lovecraft and Cthulhu and Stranger Things.
Very nice.
And Captain Marvel flavors, will be pretty happy with it. But we're starting to write that now. That's well underway. I'm trying to think how many writers are involved with that. But starting with Pinnacle 2, it kind of changes our how I don't want to say publishing schedule or publishing endeavor. So Pinnacle 1, of course, is the launch pad to the Summit universe. And starting with Pinnacle 2, Pinnacle transforms kind of into like our event, if you will. We're not going to do any like line-wide King in Black, Secret Wars style events where there's a main series and tie-in issues and all that stuff. Instead, our events are going to be confined to the annual overshots, whether it's 120, 140 pages, what have you. So it'll be self-contained and future issues once a year, and subsequent Pinnacles. So that starts with Pinnacle 2, where there is like a through story between all of the multiple shorts within the one volume, where you won't necessarily get that with Pinnacle 1 because we have so many characters to introduce. Right. But we'll get there eventually.
And again, as a reader, that makes me really excited. For the viewers out there, I did put the Summit website, so it's just readsome.it. So make sure to check that out. So there's already the Pinnacle #1 are on the website, so you can order copies if you missed the Kickstarter. So the next part of our conversation today, we're going to dive into the Curious Case of Dr. Vane, which is a current Kickstarter campaign, which I'll put that in the chat in just a moment. But Adam, if you can, kind of walk us through your elevator pitch. Who in the heck is Dr. Vane, and what is the curious case of Dr. Vane?
The Curious Case of Dr. Vane features the eponymous Aldrich Vane, who is a doctor who discovered how to traverse the multiverse. It is in two separate comics universes. It starts in the Summit universe and sees Dr. Vane travel to the Hospice universe, which is a separate small press horror based small press indie comics universe made by Orange Cone Productions. Travis Gibbs, Orange Cone, and I believe Frank Martin was a co-creator of this Hospice universe. So it takes place in the Summit universe. He figures out how to travel the multiverse. He gets pulled into the Hospice universe by a demon who wants to be able to travel the multiverse and possess as many bodies across the multiverse as possible. And yeah, Vane gets it. Vane gets his. I don't want to spoil too much, but Vane runs into some memory issues where he may no longer know how to get back home or travel the multiverse, being the only one who could travel the multiverse. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of an examination of dementia and mental illness and things that go screwy in your head. That was a really long elevator ride, but
it was so good though.
Yeah, but so that's the skyscraper elevator pitch of The Curious Case of Dr. Vane.
Perfect. And kind of a follow-up to that is, Dr. Vane, what makes him kind of different and unique from other morally gray or monstrous protagonists?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
You may not be able to go too much into that. Yeah.
No, yeah, I would say he is morally gray. I mean, I think in his heart he believes he's doing right because he wants to travel to multiverse. He's a part of a team called the Black Sigil Syndicate, and the Black Sigil Syndicate is like a pulp era occult adjacent team. So the story itself starts off 60 years in the past. So I don't know. Someone do the math for me. The 1960s, 1960s or so. In like a diesel punk inspired part of the Summit universe. And no, he wants to do good. He wants to do good and save as many people he can. So he decides how to do multiversal travel and hop between realities. And being the only person on the planet or in the universe that knows how to do that, there's a certain hubris comes with that, or you could kind of say narcissism or something like that. It's a kind of an Iron Man scenario where he's a little bit full of himself, but at the same time, if you or I also knew how to jump to Earth 2 by pressing this little button on this doohickey thing here too, we would think our shit don't stink. So there's that kind of, if you want to call him morally gray in that aspect, I think that'd be accurate.
Yeah, I think so too. And you touched on this a little bit, but how does kind of Dr. Vane fit into the Summit comics universe? Like, kind of what kind of stories or what part of the universe does he kind of occupy and help readers explore?
It does set up, it's very much rooted in horror. I wouldn't say it's like a slasher or possession horror, even though it involves demons. But it is very much uncomfortable, and it is part thriller. So it does set up that type of stuff. We don't have too much going in the horror corner of things for Summit. It's not necessarily the most popular or the most approachable genre to tell stories in, but I think lays a good bedrock for future stories that could kind of spin out of this.
That's a good way to phrase it, actually. So for the campaign itself, which I'm going to pull up on the screen for everybody here in just a moment, but for the campaign itself, how are you feeling so far, and kind of where the campaign's at, and how much time is left, and how are you feeling? I guess it's kind of just assessing.
I'm feeling good. I mean, it's not the surefire success that Pinnacle 1 was. Of course, I think we ended Pinnacle 1 280% funded. Granite's live now. CJ Hudson's Granite's live now. Granite's 200% or so, and I think last time I checked, we're about 72%. So I'm not. I mean, we have a week left. I'm not feeling nervous or anything. I think ultimately we'll fund. I didn't expect to do killer numbers on this. You know, again, horror is harder to sell. You know, you look at the box office and The Conjuring 4. While it does make a whole boatload of money, it's not Avengers Endgame money, you know, or it's not Super Mario money or anything like that. So we're doing what we can, and we'll make sure it gets funded, or do what we can to hope it gets funded. And I think it ends almost exactly a week from now. I think it ends 6 p.m. next Tuesday, the 10th.
Okay. Like I said, too, the Kickstarter URL is in the chat, so please make sure to open it up and check it out. And even if you can't support the campaign, please make sure to share it and tell everyone about it, because this is definitely a story I feel like needs to get put in print. So, Adam, if you can kind of walk us through some of the cool rewards, stretch goals, or any unique and kind of limited items that people can get access to by supporting the campaign.
Absolutely. So I like keeping my Kickstarter campaigns kind of bare bones-ish. For this one, we have 3 covers. Roland's the interior artist, did cover A, which comes with the hospice trade dress. Ram Silva, I worked with Ram on a bunch of things, and they're all escaping me right now. Ram also did interiors for the Twin Flames, J. Michael Miller's Twin Flame story in Pinnacle. He did cover B. Roland Kalnids, he's a Latvian artist and has worked with me on a bunch of stuff before. And he did this art. He was the perfect artist for this. But then cover C was done by Jay-Z. Jay-Z, not the singer, the artist, won our first ever Summit Talent Search. He was one of the artists on the first Summit Talent Search, and he did cover C, which is right there, which features an older Dr. Vane in the foreground, and in the background there is Ashzaral, the demon that just wants to mess everything up. And Roland's, thank you. Jay-Z kills it. He did a 2-page story for Summit Pinnacle #1 that might be one of my favorite things in the whole book. Written by Scott Allen Gregory. It is one of the most unique and exciting pitches I've ever seen. And reading the script, it's only 2 pages, so I'm going to avoid any story points or anything like that, because
totally.
But it's so unique, and it involves horror and possession and collectible action figures, and it's just such a crazy idea that I love so much. But Jay-Z did that, and then Roland's did 2 tarot cards too. So the idea here is I love collecting tarot decks. Right off camera over there's all my tarot decks. But since it is like a cult adjacent, the plan is we probably won't get to a full deck, but we want to do each of the if this goes over well and we like this character enough, there's 4 other members of the Black Sigil Syndicate. So the plan would be to do either 1 or 2 tarot cards per campaign, and you can collect them and add them to a deck or just display them or whatever. So our first 2, Dr. Vane is the Fool, and Ashzaral is, of course, the Devil. And those are add-ons to the campaigns. Pretty much everything else I've ever written is also available, either digitally or physically. We have Summit Pinnacle #1 available digitally, and we also have the Hospice Season 1 trade available both digitally and physically as well. So I should explain what Hospice is. It is a horror shared universe. The Season 1 had 4 or 5 one-shots that are then collected in one trade. So Season 2 also has 4 or 5. Sean Wood did The Scaled Key earlier this year. And Jonathan Hedrick of Recount fame
Nice.
has a Tunnel of Love live now. And then, are you awake? Hey, come here.
Well, hi.
Can you say hi, Jameson? It's past your bedtime.
Hi.
Okay. Night night. That little man turns 2 in a month, and I'm not ready for it, man.
I got a 5.5-year-old going to be 6 here. It goes very quickly.
It goes very quick. It's insane. John Hedrick's campaign Tunnel of Love is live now. And then who else? Austin Allen Hamblin has a story coming out. Neil Allen Mormon, who I've worked with before, also has a story coming out. And I'm forgetting people, and I feel so bad. But anyway, Season 2 is well underway, and that'll be collected. I think the plan is to do a trade in October for spooky season of the Hospice Season 2 stuff. Oh, yeah, I have the Hospice Season 2 creative team.
Yep, let me pull that up here.
Right down there.
Yeah, there we go.
So between Season 1
Sean will be on the show here soon, too. So
nice. No, Sean, he does The Fog Within is really exciting, and his Recon one, I think he's launching soon too, which is equally good. He cranks it out, man. That I aspire to do what Sean does, because Sean starts and finishes stories. You know, I think The Fog Within was 4 or 5 issues, and he kickstarted it all, and I fall into the trap of I'm really good at writing and producing number ones, you know.
Yeah, but I hear you on
that is part of my, what do you call it, like a career path change or an epiphany I had last summer. I'm like, man, instead of starting new stuff, let's tell what you can. So I'm writing more one shots and like self-contained stuff, you know. So that's actually Dr. Vane is the first thing I wrote kind of after getting into that mindset. You know, I wanted to tell something that could just be done. So this is a one shot. The Curious Case of Dr. Vane is a one shot, relatively self-contained. Like I said, it does provide that bedrock or that foundation for other characters to spin off or something of that nature.
Love hearing about that. I've got Roland's up here on the screen, but if you just want to talk another minute or two about Roland's and anyone else from the creative team and kind of what they brought to the table, and then on your original like pitch and scripts to them, do you feel like they elevated any particular parts or sequences of the story?
Roland's was the first person that came to mind when I started thinking of this story. It doesn't take long looking through his portfolio or Instagram page to notice he is. He draws horror stuff. It's everything he does is very Lovecraftian and very body. I don't even remember how we met. We met somewhere online, either on Facebook or I was just searching like horror art hashtag on Instagram or something, you know. And we've done several things now. The first short story we worked on together has been 5 or 6 years ago by now. And his stuff just, it has a certain je ne sais quoi, you know. It fits so well with this type of stuff. It maybe not superhero stuff, but like horror stuff and multiversal stuff. I knew I had to get Rollins involved. We don't go full Marvel method on this. I do script a decent amount, but I do let him get really freaky with it, with the layouts and stuff, and like that, like the second or third page where the orange and yellows are just all over the place because of that one with the
That one.
yeah. I didn't put any direction at all on that. I just explained what was happening, and he came up with it, and I said, I love it. I want a big old poster of that somewhere in my house.
Yeah, and I would love to see this as like an actual print at some point too for Summit. That'd be
Yeah,
fantastic.
I think it'd be
Just to be able to
a
buy
killer
this as a
print. Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially if we did like a black sigil logo on the top there, because there are the 4 other members. Atlas, who's like Hercules demigod, and the Red Warden, who is a very pissed off priest. He's really cool, and I want to tell you so much more about him, but I'll save it for the Red Warden one shot eventually. Captain Nocturne is a silent guy who doesn't ever talk. He never speaks. And he does some weird stuff through dreams and nightmares. And then Lady Lazarus, she can't die because she always revives herself. So she's either really 25 or who knows how old she is.
I like that.
Maybe we'll explore it sometime. But those 5 are the Black Sigil Syndicate, circa 1964.
Ooh, so the 60s. I feel like the 60s was just a great time period for creativity. It feels like.
Yeah. There might have been some acid trips involved and Vane's multiversal exploits. Yes, substances. Substances were definitely involved. Not in the making of this comic, but
right.
In universe and story.
Kind of diving now into the indie comic scene, from your kind of vantage point where you're at in the scene, where do you feel like the general public gets indie comics wrong, and kind of how to kind of break down some of those barriers of how Summit Comics is approaching things a little bit differently?
What do people get wrong about indie comics?
Maybe there's something the general public just doesn't understand, or just doesn't have a clue about kind of the behind the scenes, or
I would say the biggest thing is just the amount of work that goes into one single comic.
Right.
It's
a very time-consuming trade.
No, absolutely, and I'm not sure if this is a general assumption or not, but especially with, I'm not sure, and it might have changed. There was at one point self-publishing was kind of frowned upon. Well, you're not a published author; you're just putting words on a page and all that stuff. But for pros, whatever, But comics, man, you've got to. If you're not talented like me, you've got to hire an artist. You've got to hire a colorist. Luckily, Rollins does both for this. You've got to hire a letterer.
Yep.
And luckily, I bought Nate Picos's Essential Letterer.
There you go. Yes. Shout out Nate.
Whatever that's called. And I'm a self-trained graphic designer by trade. So a lot of that stuff came naturally. But you're not just writing a comic, you're directing a comic, you're project managing a comic.
Yes.
You have to get it together. You have to invest an absurd amount of time, money, and energy. Once it's done, God willing, you can get the thing done. You not only have to do one page, you have to at least do 19 more for a full-length comic. You have to market it, and you have to publicize it, and you have to do more graphic design on a Kickstarter page.
Yes.
You have to run the campaign, and even then, running the campaign is probably the easiest part of it, because then after that, you have to get the print file off to a printer, and then you have to fulfill the damn thing, which is probably the most time-consuming part of it all. Packaging everything up in bags and boards and putting them in one of these Gemini mailers and getting them shipped off. So it's so many damn hats you have to wear. But like I was just talking, on another show, nothing beats someone coming up to you and at a convention and wanting you to sign their books. Or even before that, nothing beats getting coming home from work and seeing your shipment of books there, and you get to open it up and you get to read it, and you're like, man, this started in my brain.
Oh yeah.
This started when I couldn't sleep one night, and I wrote the idea down on a notepad on the end table by the bed, and now it's a comic book. It's
Love
no
that.
better feeling, man. It's awesome, and I think that's still my primary source of fuel all these years later.
Well, kind of a short follow up to that is when you get that kind of, even if it's just like an advanced copy, do you find yourself actually enjoying it, or do you find yourself kind of still critiquing the work and trying to nitpick? And
Yes and yes. I enjoy it for a little bit, but by now I have learned to close the cover and set it aside, because my mindset does that. Oh, I could have tweaked this one line, or I could have had offered. I could have told Rollins to make this change in this panel, or something of that nature. And I just have a hard time putting stuff down. But I
I'm with
think
you.
I've taught myself that when it comes to my comics, it's printed. I'm not gonna. I can't afford to reprint all that stuff, so we'll just have at it and learn from mistakes if there are any. And I've also learned to stay out of comment sections of
Yeah, there
most
you
news
go.
stories. Yeah.
Well, this is a kind of a library centric question. How do you feel like a book like Dr. Vane would fit into like a library collection? I know it says a mature rating, so that would you put in like the adult graphic novels, or would teens be pretty appropriate to read this too?
I it does have a mature rating, but I do think it would fit into teen section. There's not any crazy gore, and there's certainly not any crazy language. It's just very heavy themes. We're watching a man's thoughts and memories unravel,
Right.
and it's just kind of um, sure, we have demons involved and superheroes involved, but um, the themes and the memory loss and the forgetfulness is a very real ailment that happens to a lot of people most of us love, you know? So it
Right.
is just kind of heavier and more weighty. Hence the my decision to put a mature reading or rating on it.
That makes sense. My next question, you touched on it a minute ago about kind of a cool experience, of having fans come up to you to ask to get things signed. Do you have any memorable experiences, either at conventions or you being a fan yourself, of just a cool experience, or gave your work a new perspective, kind of taking you by surprise?
Yeah, man. I There was a convention I did in the Quad Cities, um, the Davenport, Iowa, Moline, Illinois area
Yep.
for the uninitiated.
My
And
mom's
we were
family is
out.
from Mason City, so
Okay, close, close. Okay, I'm an hour and a half away from Mason City in the middle of nowhere, but
yep.
uh, small world. Near, kind of, sort of by the day the music died, right? That's up by Clear Lake, kind of, sort
Yeah, Clear Lake's
of.
right next to it. Yep.
Yeah. For the younger folks, that's Buddy Holly and Richie Valens in the Big Bopper plane crash. Anyway, the people American Pie was written about. The
Exactly.
song, not the movie. um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, we were so Quad Cities. We're at a convention, and someone came up with like every book I'd ever written, and they're like, "Oh man, so excited to meet you! I came here just for you." And I'm like, "Why? Why me?" But no, I that right there was enough to fuel my
Absolutely.
comic storytelling for the rest of my life. I've been at another con where someone had come up with a decent amount, probably not as much as the other person, but a fair amount of my stuff, and wanted me to sign it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I'll sign it. No, it's just things like that are very crazy, especially when people are asking, like,
Hmm.
will you sign my stuff? And I'll be like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you really want that? But it's just stuff like that. There was one time we were tabling at C2E2, and for whatever reason, Jim Cummings, the voice of Winnie the Pooh, and he does a bunch of other stuff. Jim's a legendary voice actor. He was like hovering behind the people I was talking to at my table, like he was waiting in line. But then they kept like talking to me and talking to me, and I didn't want to be rude and be like, "Okay, guys, I think Jim Cummings wants to talk to me. Can you please move on?" And eventually he left because they kept talking. And I'm like, "Oh, whatever." Maybe he was just asking if I knew where the bathroom was. I don't know. But things like that, man. It's cool. And once someone says, like, if someone comes to you with unbridled excitement and saying they love something you wrote, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
That's right. And speaking of kind of conventions, what are your upcoming appearances? That you can share for the next couple of months here.
We have one convention coming up in May. If anyone's in the Sioux City area, I'll be at QuadCon Sioux City. What's the date? May. But that's currently the only con on this creator schedule at the moment.
Perfect. At least what you can talk about. What else do you have kind of in the pipeline for the rest of 2026?
A lot. I can't talk about most of it. We haven't. It's virtually all for Summit, and we haven't announced any of the other stuff I'm working on.
Got it.
I will say, if you know me, I love monsters. I love horror. I love vintage pre-code horror magazines. I love Creepy Magazine and Eerie Magazine and Tales from the Crypt,
Weird Tales,
EC Comics, and Weird Tales, and any EC Comics stuff. And the stuff I'm working on now is very much in the vein of that. My favorite character, one of my favorite horror characters ever created, is the Gill Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I think my next thing after Dr. Vane will probably be something inspired by that.
It's a good tease. Maybe. Okay.
Another something maybe inspired by Ghost Rider. And then another one maybe is inspired by a haunted cornfield.
Hey.
Haunted cornfield, haunted soybean field, haunted tractor. Yeah, those are the teasers. I might not even be close to even teasing my own thing because I don't want to reveal too much again. But hopefully we can circle back once we announce that, which should be soon. Maybe.
Nice.
I don't know.
We'll find out. Yeah. So kind of with all those teasers in mind, Adam, where can people find you and Summit Comics online?
Read some.it, read summ.it /campaigns. You can find every single active and upcoming Summit Comics Kickstarter campaign there. I'm on social at Adam Barnhardt, my first and last name, one word. You can follow me. I'm mostly active on Facebook, sometimes Instagram, sometimes Blue Sky, never Twitter, never X, whatever you want to call it. And you can, I write for The Beat, Comics Beat, the Eisner winning Comics Beat. Sometimes you can see my stuff there. Otherwise, yeah, I'm mainly hanging out in the Summit Discord trying to break the next story that I'll tease on a podcast in a couple of months and hopefully write sometime,
Perfect. So my last question to close this out is a fun one, but an odd one. Do you happen to have a favorite snack or a meal as a go-to to power yourself through a couple hours of work?
Favorite snack? Of course, I have lots of favorite snacks. That's how I got the physique I have right now. I have many favorite snacks. Yes, chiseled. Sure. Thank you. Sour Patch Kids is probably my go-to, and that little man you just saw a little bit a while ago. They also happen to be his favorite too. He's never really has like puckered at Sour Patch Kids or anything. He just eats it
Interesting.
like popcorn. It's crazy. Sour Patch Kids are my go-to. I love popcorn. Popcorn, man. That's why I have high blood pressure, because the saltier the popcorn, the better.
Yep.
And then, if I could have Sour Patch Kids and a big thing of buttery, salty popcorn paired with a Diet Mountain Dew or a Dew Zero Sugar, man, that's my Saturday night. Watching some old game shows on Pluto TV on Buzzer, man. If Gene Rayburn comes on for Match Game 74, we're getting turned up in the Barnhardt house. Let me tell you what.
Well, I'm going
Classic
to put
Concentration.
the
That's another good one too.
There you go. Well, I'm putting the Kickstarter URL one more time for everybody out there. Make sure to please go check it out and support it. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Any last thoughts you'd like to share before we head out?
No, mate. Just read whatever comics you want. Whatever comics that you find pleasure in reading. Read them, love them. More importantly, tell someone of the great comics you read, so maybe they'll read it and they'll pass it along. And if it happens to be written by me, awesome. If it happens to be written by my arch enemies, cool. Maybe we can get more comic readers that way still. But yeah, just read some comics, love some comics, and do no ill will unto others. How about that?
Great way to say it. All right, everybody out there, thank you for joining us. We've had a great audience this entire time, so thank you for sticking with us for these almost 47 minutes now. This has been Comics for All, where comics, creativity, and community all connect. I think Adam's been a great representation of all three of those things. So everybody out there, thank you for joining us wherever you are, and see you next time. Take care.